Hey everyone, Sean Harrington here. I'm going to give you a really quick um, update on the development timeline of the Aquarius Plus for those who don't know. I haven't made a video in about a year. I think the last one I did was for the Aquarius MX, not even the MX Basic 2.0 that we released. So I'm going to try and get through this. This says 30 minutes. I'm going to try and get through it a lot quicker than that. You can always pause if you want to see what I'm talking about. So this is a condensed history of what we've gone through to bring the Aquarius Plus to you guys so you can work with it, and also talk about where we're headed and where, most importantly, where we're not headed. What am I going to do? Well, we're going to talk about the history, how we got here, review the scope of the Aquarius Plus, identify our path forward, and then work maybe to recruit some new people to the community and to the platform. I've talked in the past about me. I don't need to go into that too much. I do work for the Ventura County Fire Department. I do development for a living, but not necessarily in the retro hardware space. That's why this is a nice diversion for me. I used to do a lot of um, arcade updates. When I was in high school, I worked for Showbiz Pizza. I got to work in the video game support area, so I learned a lot of interesting stuff. And then as I became older, I became more introspective about hardware and stuff. So let's go into a quick history of the Aquarius. It was originally released in '83 by Mattel. It was designed and built by Radifin. Um, it was canceled in late 1983, and then Radifin took it over and started selling it in bundles through chain stores like KB and such. But it's basically been written off for the past 40 years as a toy computer. Now, not by those of us who love it, but for the most part, most people I talk to don't even know that there was a Mattel Aquarius computer. So we released the Aquarius Plus in 2023, in this year. So here's a quick comparison of the specs. Basically the same as the original Aquarius. We do, in our core platform, support all of the legacy ports. But we do have some other things. We've got mouse input, we've got Wi-Fi, we've got Bluetooth, and we also have a lot more RAM. So when did all of this begin? Well, in summer of 2021, I was working on a variety of things, but I was also tracking progress of the Commander X16, and what caught my attention was the Vera chip that Frank Vandenhoef created. And so I contacted him on or around October 26th of 2021, and we just passed the 2-year anniversary of that. And I said, hey, how can I, not you, how can I develop and implement the Vera chip on something like the Aquarius? I wasn't asking him to do the work. I was just, asking for information. So he forwarded me information about a dip version of the daughter card that he had just finished, and he sent me to a link to the IO map for what it can do, which I'd seen before, but it was interesting to see a more detailed version of that. And then, I said, hey, here's kind of what I'm trying to do. He said, hey, how can I help you with this? So I sent him information about the Aquarius, S1 ROMs, and those sorts of things, and he got into it. And so in December, he decided that he was going to actually take a look at some of the libraries and maybe work on a simple emulator that might implement some of the things that he had developed for the Vera: sprites, tile maps, other things as well too. So by January, he had finished an emulator for it using SDL2, and it had a Visual Studio wrapper. He first created the GitHub for it, and the current Aquarius Plus site was originally the Aquarius EMU site. But then he started to continue to develop some of the additional functionality. He got libraries for the USB drive, the CH276 or 376, I can't remember which unit that we use on the Aquarius MX. And he was going gangbusters. He had the emulator and it had many of the improvements, video sprites and those sorts of things. But then he diverted a little bit and he started working on the motherboard, the actual PCB. And this was in March. And then late March, we agreed that the name was officially now going to be Aquarius Plus. So I developed a logo, worked on that, and then Frank very shortly thereafter released the tile demo, and that's the demo that has Sonic the Hedgehog that shows off sprites and tile maps. Things started to speed up a little bit. We went from Rev 0, which Frank actually built and hand assembled himself, to Rev 1 that fixed some of the issues with that. I ordered PCBs for Rev 1, and then I used them as a starting point to create the 3D printed enclosure. And our goal is always to make this user makeable as much as possible. We started to see that components were starting to dry up due to the chip shortages. So we decided that we were going to order some of those so we would have spares. I ordered my parts by July. I had all of those, and I assembled my version of the Rev 1 motherboard. Didn't do it so well. It had some issues, as you'll see. I sent Frank some cartridge and a controller so he could do some testing of his own. He made updates to the FPGA. The ROM images were always implemented by USB, by using the ESP tool, which is I think, a Python-based tool. So that's how we update that. But then I started to get distracted by other things like the Aquarius MX and mechanical keyboard and those things. We identified an issue on both the Rev 0 and Rev 1 boards. One of the level shifters was backwards. Frank reworked the I/O map to better handle kind of future-proof where we wanted to go with the sprites and such and color palettes. He also identifies some bodges on the motherboard. If you take a look at my Rev 1 motherboard, you can see there's some wiring on it. He identified those, and I made those fixes. But then by the end of the year, we were both very distracted with holidays. I was going on a couple of family vacations. He had, I think he was getting ready to move or something like that, or had just moved in, and he had some home improvement stuff. And we started to see the chip shortages become even more pronounced. So it was in this time, the first quarter of 2023, where the project almost died. It literally almost came to a screeching halt because we couldn't do anything. We couldn't get chips. Frank did release a Tetris game towards the end of it, towards late April. But then we saw a light at the end of the tunnel. We saw that chips were going to start to be available in mid-May, particularly a different version of the Spartan FPGA. We've been using Spartan 5. Spartan 6 is actually a simpler chip, cheaper, easier to implement. So we developed Frank developed the Rev 2 board. We removed the USB ports down here. We determined those are never going to be used. We also reduced the component count by about 10%. Additionally, we implemented an ESP32S3 module, which had Bluetooth in it. We finally got Wi-Fi connectivity, and late May of 2023, the decision was made that we were going to open it up to the public. We're actually going to release the Aquarius Plus Facebook group and start to bring in some other people to work on this. Early June was the 40th anniversary of the Aquarius launch. The team that had been working on the Aquarius MX Basic 2.0 was done. We released the product, and it's out in the wild. And at this time, Curtis Kaler had some bandwidth, and he joined us. Here's some of the other things we did in that time frame. We got our prototypes for the Rev 2 boards and cases. I sent those off in July to some influencers, TJ and Jay and a couple of other folks. And I ordered the first set of 50 units, and those came in early August. Those were offered to the Facebook group. And at that time, the Facebook group had reached about 100 people in just a month. So that was great. Frank released the emulator as a release package, firmware. You could do that all through the GitHub now, wirelessly on the systems. Sorry, I'm drying out. And Curtis finished up the S3 version of the ROM, which allows us to expand the locations where beyond the 8K of memory to where we store routines. The good thing is the S3 ROM can be implemented on the original Aquarius, but you do have to do some deep surgery on how you would implement that. You'd have to have a ROM switcher there. Around this time, a number of things happened. The pre-orders for the Facebook group were delivered. I spoke at the Vintage Computer Fair West in Mountain View about the Aquarius. I did also talk about the Plus. And the official name for the basic environment for the Aquarius Plus was determined by Curtis to be called Plus Basic, and we loved it. It's a great name. September, this is just last month. Dave Roper in the UK built his first set of UK boards. He did 2 and then an additional 3. I put my Aquarius Plus units on eBay, and then we finally finished up the mini prototypes, which are cost reduced. They don't have any of the legacy ports. They're really more for people who just want to play games or who want to develop on actual hardware, which is kind of nice. We implemented mouse input and some other stuff, and we finally added the official square icon, which you can see in the lower right-hand corner of that screen. And then we're up to this month. Again, a couple days ago was the official 2-year anniversary of when this whole Aquarius Plus project got started. During this month, a lot of cool stuff happened. Curtis created a gauntlet demo using the actual Atari tile maps, and we created a character ROM which had the potions and all of the stuff you would see on the right-hand side of the screen. Also implemented by Frank was 80-column mode for the purposes of developing a CPM environment, which we are headed towards. I also started work on the first ever holiday demo for the Aquarius and the Aquarius Plus. It'll be for the Aquarius Plus because that's what we're trying to highlight. Sorry, Aquarius users. This is kind of what we're doing on. And a couple of other things. We also expanded the Plus Basic developer team to include folks like Jay Mundy, Roy Templeman, Matt Pills, Mac, of course, has joined us. So it's good. So where are we going from here? This is what we want to do. This is what we've always wanted to do. Create a cost-effective Z80-based retro system, that's fun to work with. We want to make sure that the hardware is always cost-effective and that the emulator is always free. So it should not be a barrier of entry for anyone. We want it to be free. We want it to be flexible, future-proof, functional, and fun. So what are our near-term target goals? We are going to implement 80-column mode, CPM. Curtis is going to continue to do Plus Basic development to expose some of the new hardware capabilities that haven't had a chance to really explore. 80-column mode is a good example. He wants to implement a PT3 music player that's asynchronous, so it can play in the background. That'll be important for me for the holiday demo. I want to have music and sound effects. And we'd like to see some folks, who are in the developer group release a few Plus Basic games. Long term, we would like to make bootable SD card images, so there's like a file that the system always looks for. If it's there, it will execute that, whether it's a Plus Basic program or whether it's, a compiled image or something like that. We'd like to be able to do that so that we can create software releases on SD cards if people want to do that. And we're looking really for someday some sort of a killer app, a game that only exists on the Aquarius Plus. But to do that, we would have to host game jams, and I'm willing to do that. I'm just one person on that front right now. I've got to keep the other folks focused on the other development areas. So what are we not currently doing? It's not to say that we'll never do it, but we're not currently doing it. FujiNet has been brought up several times. I think it's a great system. It is built on the ESP32, so it's possible to do. We just don't have the bandwidth or the know-how to do it. We need to kind of get our own house in order before we take a look at that. Adding new joysticks, and I mean hardwired DB9 joysticks or mice or modems. Again, that's not the path we're going to go right now. We wanted to include those for legacy purposes, but we want to go wireless and other approaches in the future. We would like to support other wireless-based controllers, but that requires Bluetooth LE, or what's known as BLE. It's difficult to figure out which devices have those. So if you know of any BLE controllers, 8-bit DOE, something like that, let us know. We'd be willing to take a look at that so that you don't have to buy a $50 wireless controller like the Xbox. It's a great controller, but it could be cheaper. And we don't have time right now to look at alternate cores. People have suggested maybe having a core for a TRS-80, Coco, TI-99, any of these other Z80-based systems. We just don't have the bandwidth to do it. So how can you contribute? Well, if you're in the emulator, here's the tasks we recommend. Always, always, always download the newest releases and make sure that your SD card is updated with the newest demos and games so you get fewer syntax errors or anything like that. If you have actual hardware, pick the right peripherals. We do have a recommended list of keyboards and keyboard mouse combos. Take a look at that. Definitely connect to Wi-Fi. Definitely get the system updated to the newest version and get in the habit of doing that. And take a look at the wiki. Read it. Help let us know when it's not clear to you, and we would like to update that. So what do we ask you not to do? Well, please don't casually make comments or posts that say, someone should such and such and such for the Aquarius Plus. We don't disagree with you, but what we do ask you to do is do your research, figure out how that might happen. If it's beyond your scope and you can't find anybody else to do it, maybe it's not going to happen. We don't have the bandwidth. We've already prioritized what else we're working on. It's not saying we won't work on it at some point in the future. We just don't have the time to do it now. Do your research, figure out how you could do it if you wanted to, or find the people who would be interested in doing it. If something doesn't work on your system, whether it's the emulator or the hardware, don't just complain. Don't just sit there and complain. Read the wiki. Ask experts within the Facebook group or others. Post an issue on the GitHub. We respond really well to issues, but back up your issue with how to recreate it so we can recreate it on our systems and fix it. We want to fix the system. We want to make it better. And in general, it's pretty easy. Don't be a jerk. We got a lot of really nice people. As TJ has said in his videos, the Aquarius platform has a lot of really positive individuals. We have a very low tolerance for people who are jerks, for people who are trying to spam us and those sorts of things. We know the system is, we know the original platform, the Aquarius platform, is not a great system. That doesn't mean we don't like it. It actually makes it more endearing to us because it's a system that nobody cared about. And we decided we were going to do something with it, and we do like it. So again, don't be a jerk. So what do we need assistance in? Well, we need assistance with Plus Basic programming. Start using the system. Take a look at the demos, tear them apart, see how we're doing things. Ask us questions. We're always trying to make sure that there are REM comments in there that tell you what we're doing, but compare that to the documentation and see if there's some discrepancies. We'd love to see more people doing C programming. We do have an SDK for SDCC and Makefiles. Try it. It's the Tetris demo was written in that. It's a good example. Lots of room for ASM programming. If you want to help us, we'd love to see that. Convert a game that's already existing for a Specky or something like that that's already got 90% Z80 code. We can help you with the translation tables for the graphics or the sound or anything you want. Help us convert one of those. Or help us help you convert one of those is probably what I'm saying. We always need help with documentation. Curtis tries to keep the wiki updated. John is kind of reworking holistically the system to make sure it's as organized as possible. And we're getting great feedback. TJ just gave some great feedback on the difficulty he has with finding keywords that he thinks are important for updating the system. And he's trying, and I appreciate that. But we could use people who point out documentation that needs to be updated. Anybody who knows virtual hardware development, you want to learn Verilog. It's a great skill to have, particularly as hardware becomes less and less important. You're creating virtual frameworks, virtual CPUs, virtual logic handlers. Verilog is a very great skill to have. Being able to code in C on the ESP32, it's very Arduino-like. If you've got those skills, we could certainly use them. Maybe that's a great way if you want to implement FujiNet, take it upon yourself. Learn ESP32 code and see if you can implement it. And emulator improvements. Most people are interacting with the Aquarius Plus via the emulator. Learn SDL2, understand how it does that. Take a look at the IMGUI library that we use to create documentation. I would love to see more, pardon me, in emulator editors for sprites, tiles, music, that sort of stuff. Hopefully I'm at the end because I'm at the end of my drink. And as I say here, flex your coding muscles. So that's it. It's been about 20 minutes. If you want to take a look at the GitHub, it is the bottom. The Aquarius.plus is a redirect. It goes to my my Aquarius site. I don't necessarily want to detract from that. At some point, we may make a nicer front end, but with so many media sources out there, YouTube, GitHub, and all of these other sites, we're trying to find the best place that can give us the greatest group of people who can interact and find the information they need. So that's it. Love your feedback. Don't be a jerk, but we love feedback. And let me know what you'd like to see in the next video on this. Take care.